Do-Won Kim stood at the main window of the research vessel Stellar Seeker, looking at the frozen planet below. The entire world was covered in ice, shining like a white pearl in space. He had visited many planets before, but this one was different. Their scans had shown signs of an advanced civilization buried under the ice. "Professor Kim, you need to see this," called Jaya Park from her research station. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing screen as she brought up new data. "The metal deposits we detected. They're not random. They form patterns. Look at these straight lines and perfect angles." Do-Won walked over to her station, his four eyes widening as he studied the images. Under the thick ice lay the remains of what looked like cities. There were tall structures, long roads, and huge buildings, all perfectly preserved in their frozen tomb. "How long has this planet been frozen?" he asked, his outer eyes blinking in surprise while his inner eyes stayed fixed on the data. Jaya checked her instruments. "According to our readings, approximately 10,000 local years. The Ice Age came quickly and covered everything." She paused, looking at more readings. "But Professor, there's something else. We're detecting heat signatures and energy patterns deep underground." Do-Won moved closer to see the new data. He had studied hundreds of dead worlds in his career, but he had never seen anything like this. Most civilizations that faced such disasters either left their planets or died out. But these readings suggested something else entirely. "We need to start thawing operations," he decided, "but carefully. If there's anything still alive down there, we don't want to harm it." He turned to the ship's communication system. "Bridge, this is Professor Kim. Please contact the Science Council. Tell them we found something extraordinary." The next few days were busy on the Stellar Seeker. The crew set up thawing equipment around a small area they had chosen for their first test. They used heat beams that could melt ice slowly and safely. Do-Won spent hours watching the process, taking notes and making calculations. As they melted through the first layers of ice, they found more evidence of the civilization that once lived here. There were pieces of machines, parts of buildings, and other signs of advanced technology. Everything was remarkably well preserved. "Professor," Jaya called out one morning, "the deep scanners are picking up something new. There are huge caverns underground, and they're not natural. They were built." She showed him the scanner images. "And look at these energy readings. They're active. Something down there is still running after all this time." Do-Won studied the readings carefully. The underground structures were massive, stretching for hundreds of kilometers in all directions. They showed signs of power generation, air circulation, and most surprisingly, life support systems. "Could anyone have survived?" Jaya asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them. Before Do-Won could answer, one of the junior researchers burst into the room. "Professor Kim, we're receiving a signal. It's coming from underground. And it's a data transmission. Someone down there is trying to communicate with us." Do-Won and Jaya rushed to the communication station. On the screen, lines of code appeared, then translated themselves into clear, deliberate messages. Someone had detected their presence and was reaching out to them. "Impossible," Do-Won whispered, but the evidence was right in front of him. Against all odds, someone had survived. An entire civilization had found a way to live through an ice age that had lasted thousands of years. And now they were making contact. As he prepared to respond to the message, Do-Won realized that what they had discovered was more than just an ancient frozen world. They had found perhaps the most resilient species he had ever encountered. A species that, instead of running from disaster, had found a way to survive it. The real question now was, what would they find when they finally met these survivors face to face? The first message from beneath the ice was simple: "We are the people of Earth. We welcome peaceful contact." Do-Won and Jaya spent 3 days exchanging messages with the underground civilization. They learned that the humans had built massive cities deep within the Earth's crust. These cities use the planet's heat to stay warm and power their systems. "They want to meet us," Jaya told Do-One, reading the latest message. They're sending their chief engineer, Han Sol-Lee, to a meeting point near our thawing site. Do-One felt both excited and nervous. In all his years of space exploration, he had never met a species that had survived such extreme conditions. Tell them we agree. We'll meet them tomorrow. The next day, Do-One and Jaya waited at the meeting point with their team. They had melted a path through the ice to reach a large metal door built into the rock. Their instruments showed an elevator system behind it that went deep underground. With a loud hum, the door began to open. Warm air rushed out, creating clouds of steam where it met the cold air. 3 figures stepped out, wearing simple but well-made clothing. They looked different from the aliens, having only 2 eyes and standing on 2 legs instead of 4. The person in front stepped forward. I am Han Sol-Lee, Chief Engineer of New Seoul City. Welcome to Earth. His voice was calm and friendly, though his eyes showed careful attention to every detail of the alien's appearance. Do-One introduced himself, and Jia. We are amazed by what we have found here. How many of you survived? Han Sol smiled. Currently, our population is just over 10 million. Spread across 12 underground cities. Would you like to see one? The aliens followed Han Sol and his team into the elevator. As they descended, Han Sol explained how their civilization worked. When our scientists first predicted the Ice Age, many people wanted to leave Earth. But we chose to stay and adapt. We built these cities over 20 years, using advanced drilling technology and thermal shielding. The elevator opened into a vast cavern. Do-One and Jaya gasped at what they saw. An entire city stretched before them, filled with buildings, parks, and streets. The ceiling glowed with artificial light that mimicked natural sunlight. People walked around, going about their daily lives as if they weren't buried under kilometers of ice. This is incredible, Jaya said, looking at the urban farm areas where plants grew in carefully managed conditions. You've created a complete ecosystem down here. Han Sol led them to a large building in the center of the city. This is our main control center. From here, we monitor everything: power systems, air quality, food production, and the ice above us. We've been watching your ship since it entered our solar system. Inside the control center, they met more of the city's leaders. Screens showed data from all 12 underground cities, connected by a network of high-speed tunnels. The aliens learned that each city specialized in different things. Some focused on farming, others on manufacturing or research. But why didn't you try to contact other worlds? Do-One asked. Surely it would have been easier than building all this. Han Sol's expression grew serious. Earth is our home. We believed we could survive here, and we did. Now that the ice is melting, we plan to rebuild on the surface while keeping our underground cities as a backup. We learned long ago not to put all our hopes in one place. Do-One looked at Jaya, and they shared a moment of understanding. They had come expecting to find ruins of a dead world. Instead, they had found something far more valuable, a lesson in survival and determination that would amaze the entire galactic community. Do-One and Jaya spent the next week exploring New Seoul City. Their guide was Soo-Min Choi, the director of agriculture, who showed them how humans had created a complete food system underground. These are our main growing areas, Soo-Min explained, leading them through vast chambers filled with plants growing under special lights. The plants grew in layers, reaching up toward the ceiling in tall structures. We can feed everyone in the city from these farms. We grow everything from rice to vegetables to fruit. The aliens watched as workers tended to the plants. Special robots moved between the rows, checking plant health and adjusting the growing conditions. Everything was carefully controlled to make the best use of space and resources. But how do you handle security? Jaya asked. In such a closed space, any problem could be dangerous. Soo-Min smiled and called over the head of security, Tai-Yang Kang. Tai-Yang was a tall man with alert eyes who clearly took his job seriously. We have many systems to keep everyone safe, he explained. Every part of the city has backup systems. If one area has trouble, we can move people to other areas quickly. Tai Yang showed them the security center, where screens monitored every part of the city. We watch the ice above us most carefully, he said. We have sensors that warn us if the ice moves or cracks. We also watch our air and water systems. Nothing is left to chance. As they walked through the city, Do-Won noticed how well-organized everything was. The streets were clean and well-lit. People moved about their daily lives in an orderly way. Despite living underground, they seemed happy and healthy. How do you keep the air fresh? Do-Won asked, noticing that the air quality was perfect. Su-min took them to another large chamber. Here, huge machines cleaned and recycled the air. We have gardens throughout the city that help clean the air naturally, she explained. But these machines do most of the work. They were designed to last for hundreds of years without failing. In another area, they found a large swimming pool. Children were playing in the water while their parents watched. We keep many things from surface life, Tai Yang said. Swimming pools, parks, sports areas. It helps people feel normal, even though we live underground. The aliens were most impressed by the city's power center. Deep wells reached down to capture the Earth's heat, turning it into power for the whole city. We never run out of energy, Su-min explained. The Earth's core will stay hot for millions of years. Later that day, they visited one of the schools. Young children learned about both their underground world and the surface world their ancestors had left behind. They studied science, history, and the skills they would need to help run the city. Every person has an important job, Su-min told them. Some grow food, some maintain our machines, some teach, some keep us safe. We work together because we must. There is no room for waste or conflict in our world. At the end of the day, Do-Won and JF sat in their guest quarters, thinking about everything they had seen. These humans are remarkable, Jaya said. They turned what could have been the end of their species into a new beginning. Do-Won agreed. They didn't just survive, he said. They built something new, something that might be better in some ways than what they had before. He looked at his notes about the city. I think we have much to learn from them. The next day would bring more discoveries, but already the aliens knew they had found something special. The humans of Earth had not only survived, they had created a new way of living that worked in perfect harmony with their challenging environment. The council chamber of New Seoul City was a large round room with seats arranged in circles. Do-Won and Jaya sat with their delegation, facing the human leaders. Council President Min Seo Park stood at the center, ready to share humanity's story with their alien visitors. 10,000 years ago, Min Seo began. Our scientists discovered that a great freeze was coming. They predicted that ice would cover the whole Earth. Many people wanted to build ships to leave our planet, but we chose a different path. The room was quiet as Min Seo showed old recordings on the large screens. They saw images of the massive construction projects that had created the underground cities. Thousands of people working together, building their future home beneath the Earth's surface. We had only 20 years to prepare, Min Seo continued. We built 12 cities, connected them with tunnels, and moved our people underground. When the ice came, we were ready. Do-Won raised his hand to ask a question. How did you decide who would go underground? Surely you could not save everyone. Min Seo's face grew serious. We chose people with different skills. Farmers, engineers, doctors, teachers. We needed everyone who could help build and maintain our new world. It was the hardest choice our leaders ever made. Jaya noticed that some of the human council members looked sad at this memory. Even after thousands of years, the pain of leaving others behind still affected them. But tell us about your people, Min Seo said, changing the subject. We see that you travel between stars. What is life like out there? Do-Won explained about the galactic community, how different species lived and worked together, trading goods and knowledge. The humans listened with great interest, especially when he described other worlds where life had adapted to extreme conditions. Your cities remind me of the deep space stations near black holes, Jaya added. They also must create everything they need to survive. But none of them have lasted as long as your cities. During a break in the meeting, Du-1 and Jia shared some of their food with the humans, while the humans offered them underground-grown fruits and vegetables. This simple act of sharing a meal helped both sides feel more comfortable with each other. We have kept many records of the surface world, Min Seo told them as they ate. We teach our children about the forests, oceans, and mountains. We want them to know where we came from, even if they have never seen these things. And now the ice is melting, Du-1 said. What will you do? Min Seo smiled. We will go back to the surface, step by step. But we will keep our underground cities. They are our home now, and they have protected us well. The meeting continued into the evening. Both sides shared stories, asked questions, and began to understand each other better. The aliens were impressed by how the humans had preserved their history and culture despite living in such difficult conditions. At the end of the day, Min Seo made an important announcement. We would like to establish regular communication with your people, she said. Perhaps we can learn from each other. We have experience living in enclosed spaces, which might help your space stations, and you can help us understand how the galaxy has changed while we were underground. Do-1 and Jaya looked at each other, pleased with this suggestion. They had come to study a frozen world, but had found instead a chance to make new friends and allies. We accept, Do-1 said. Let this be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. Environmental Chief Yoon-hee Kim stood at her monitoring station, watching the ice melt on the surface screens. The alien technology was working faster than anyone had expected. Already, large areas of ice were turning to water, revealing the ancient world beneath. The water levels are rising quickly, she reported to the council. We need to be careful about how fast we melt the ice. Too much water too quickly could cause problems. Expedition Commander Jae-sung Lee disagreed with her careful approach. He stood up from his seat at the council table. We have waited 10,000 years to see the surface again, he said. The faster we melt the ice, the sooner we can start rebuilding our world above. Do-1 and Jaya watched this debate with interest. They had seen similar arguments on other worlds when big changes were happening. Some people wanted to move quickly, while others preferred to be more careful. Perhaps we can find a middle path, Do-1 suggested. We have technology that can move the extra water to places where it won't cause harm. We can help you control the melting process. Yoon-hee looked at the data again. The old cities on the surface are still there, frozen in the ice. If we melt too quickly, we might damage them. These are important parts of our history. Then we will work together, Jaya said. Our ships can scan the ice to find these old cities. We can melt the ice more slowly in those areas. The council members talked about this idea. Some, like Jae-sung, still wanted to move faster. Others agreed with Yoon-hee that they should be more careful. In the end, they decided to try the alien suggestion. Over the next few weeks, the thawing continued at a steady pace. The aliens used their technology to control where the water went, creating new lakes and rivers in places where they would not cause damage. Yoon-hee's team carefully monitored everything, making sure the changes didn't harm their underground cities. Jae-sung spent this time preparing his expedition teams. Once we have enough clear land, he explained to Do-1, we will send teams to explore the surface. We want to see what remains of our old world. The aliens helped the humans plan for these expeditions. They shared their maps of the surface, showing where the ice was thinnest and where the old cities were buried. They also helped design special vehicles that could travel safely on the changing surface. One day, Yoon-hee called everyone to her monitoring station. Look at this, she said, pointing to her screen. We found something unexpected. There are plants growing where we cleared the ice. Life is returning to the surface already. This discovery excited everyone. The council called a special meeting to discuss what it meant. If plants can grow again, Jae-sung said, then maybe we can start farming on the surface sooner than we thought. Do-won watched all of this with growing respect for the humans. Despite their different opinions, they worked together to solve problems. They were careful but also brave, willing to try new things while protecting what they had built. Your people continue to surprise us, he told Yoon-hee. You survived underground for so long, and now you face these new challenges with the same strength. Yoon-hee smiled. We learned long ago that change is part of life, she said. The important thing is to face it together. The morning of the first surface expedition arrived with great excitement. Team leader Jin-woo Park checked his equipment one final time as his group prepared to leave the underground city. They wore special suits designed to protect them from the cold and changing weather conditions on the surface. Remember, Jin-woo told his team, we stay together at all times. The surface is still dangerous, with unstable ice and deep water in many places. His team of 10 people included both humans and aliens, working together to explore the newly thawed areas. Do-won had joined this expedition, eager to see what they might find. The group took an elevator to the surface, and for the first time in thousands of years, humans stepped onto open ground under the sky. It's so bright, said one team member, looking up at the sun. Even through their protective visors, the natural light seemed strong after living so long underground. The landscape around them was a mix of water, ice, and bare ground. In the distance, they could see the tops of old buildings emerging from the melting ice. Jin-woo checked his mapping device. The old city center should be 2 kilometers in that direction, he said, pointing east. Let's move carefully and test the ground as we go. The team walked slowly, using special tools to check if the ground was solid before each step. Sometimes they had to go around large pools of water or cross them using floating bridges they carried with them. Do-won noticed that the humans seemed both excited and nervous about being on the surface. After an hour of walking, they reached the first building. It was an old office tower, its top floors now free of ice. Look at this, Jin-woo said, shining his light on the building's walls. The materials they used back then were incredibly strong. This building survived being frozen for 10,000 years. Inside the building, they found everything exactly as it had been left. Desks, chairs, and old machines stood frozen in time. But what surprised them most was finding a sealed room with working technology inside. This is amazing, Do-won said, examining the old computers. Your ancestors planned for this. They protected their most important technology, knowing someone would find it one day. Jin-woo carefully connected a power unit to one of the old machines. To everyone's surprise, it started working. They used special materials that could survive extreme cold, he explained. Our ancestors left these things for us to find. The team spent several hours exploring the building, recording everything they found. They discovered maps, technical drawings, and instruction manuals, all carefully preserved. It seemed that the people of the past had deliberately left information to help their descendants rebuild. There's something else, one team member called out. She had found a message carved into a metal plate on the wall. Jin-woo read it aloud. To those who find this place, we chose to stay on Earth because we believed humanity could survive anything if we worked together. We leave these tools and knowledge to help you rebuild. The message made everyone quiet for a moment. Do-won noticed that some of the humans had tears in their eyes. This connection to their past meant a lot to them. As the day ended and the team prepared to return underground, Jin-woo took one last look at the old city. We'll be back, he said quietly. We'll learn from what they left us, and we'll rebuild. But this time, we'll do it with new friends from the stars. Chief Historian Hai-jin Cho sat in her office, surrounded by screens displaying information from the recovered data archives. After the surface expedition's discovery, her team had worked day and night to decode and understand the messages left by their ancestors. Please, show us what you have found, Do-won said. He and Ji had joined Hai-jin for her presentation of the newly discovered historical records. Several council members were also present, eager to learn about their past. Hai Jin touched her screen, and a large image appeared on the wall. It showed a meeting from 10,000 years ago. Our ancestors knew about the coming ice age 30 years before it happened, she explained. They had three choices: leave Earth in spaceships, try to stop the ice age, or adapt to survive it. The room was silent as she continued. Many countries wanted to build ships and leave. Some wanted to try to warm the planet with technology. But a group of scientists had another idea. They believed we could survive underground. She showed more images, detailed plans for the underground cities, testing of special materials, and construction of huge tunnels. They did not just guess, she said. They tested everything. They built small underground communities first to make sure people could live below the surface. But why choose to stay? Jia asked. Surely leaving would have been easier. Hai Jin opened another file. They left us many messages explaining their choice. Here is one from the lead scientist. Earth is our home. If we leave, we may never return. But if we stay and adapt, we will be stronger. We will prove that humanity can survive anything. Do-Won watched as more information appeared on the screens. The ancient humans had planned everything carefully. They had built special vaults throughout the world, filling them with knowledge, technology, and seeds from important plants. They had created materials that could survive the extreme cold and machines that could work for thousands of years. Look at this, Hai Jin said, showing a map. They built 12 cities, but they also built smaller backup shelters all around the world. Each one contained supplies and information. They wanted to make sure that even if some cities failed, humanity would survive. The council members looked amazed as they learned how much their ancestors had prepared for them. They did not just want us to survive, Hai Jin continued. They wanted us to remember who we were and to be ready to rebuild when the ice melted. Your ancestors were very wise, Do-Won said. They understood something important, that adapting to challenges makes a species stronger. Hai Jin nodded. They left us one more important message. She displayed a final image. It showed instructions for rebuilding on the surface, but also warnings about protecting the environment and working together as one people. They hoped we would learn from their example, she explained. They worked together across all nations to build our underground world. They wanted us to keep that unity when we returned to the surface. As the presentation ended, Do-Won understood why humans had survived when many other species might have failed. They had not just planned for survival. They had planned for the future, thinking about the people they would never meet, but who would carry on their legacy. 6 months after the aliens first discovered Earth, the landscape had changed dramatically. Large areas of land were now free of ice, and the first surface settlement was taking shape. Do-Won stood with the human leaders, watching workers build new homes under the open sky. The first 100 families will move to the surface next week. Council President Min Seo Park said. They had chosen this location carefully, on high ground near one of the underground city entrances. The buildings combined old human knowledge with new alien technology, making them stronger and safer than ever before. Do-Won had recently received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted his final report about Earth and its people. Should humans be welcomed into the galactic community? The choice would affect both humans and aliens for generations to come. Your surface settlement is growing well, Do-Won said to Min Seo. How do people feel about living above ground? Min Seo smiled. Some are nervous, but most are excited. We will keep our underground cities as well. They remind us of how we survived, and they will protect us if we ever face another crisis. Nearby, Environmental Chief Yoon Hee Kim was teaching alien scientists about the new plants growing on the surface. The old seeds left by their ancestors had started to grow, bringing life back to the thawed Earth. The aliens were amazed at how quickly nature was returning. We found more sealed vaults yesterday, historian Hai Jin Cho reported, joining their group. Each one contains more knowledge from our past. Our ancestors left us everything we need to rebuild. Do-1 watched as a group of children played in the first surface park. They wore simple protective suits, but they ran and laughed like children on any world. Some of them had never seen the sky before, and they kept looking up in wonder. Later that day, Do-1 met with Jaya in their ship. "We must make our final decision," he said. "Should we recommend that Earth joins the galactic community?" Jaya looked at her notes about the humans. "They are remarkable," she said. "They chose the hardest path, staying on their world instead of running away. They worked together to survive, and they kept their knowledge and culture alive for 10,000 years." Do-1 agreed. He began to write his report to the Galactic Council. He wrote about the underground cities, about the careful plans of the ancient humans, and about how their descendants had lived and grown stronger through the long ice age. The next morning, Do-1 called a meeting with the human leaders. "We have made our decision," he announced. "We will recommend that Earth becomes a full member of the galactic community. Your people have shown great wisdom, strength, and unity. You have much to teach other worlds about survival and working together." The human leaders looked proud but humble. "We look forward to sharing what we have learned," Min-Seo said. "But we also look forward to learning from other worlds. Together, we can all grow stronger." As the sun set on the new settlement, Do-1 thought about how far humanity had come. They had faced the end of their world and turned it into a new beginning. Now they were ready to take their place among the stars, carrying with them the lessons of their long winter beneath the ice.